Hey guys, welcome to Coaching with Chris. I'm excited because I have a guy that has taught me a lot, not only by observing him, but also going to his event, which I know we're going to get into and talk about today, but talking about art of the presentation. And please, I want to welcome Rene Rodriguez. I mean, the Rene Rodriguez.
How are you, my man? How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks for having me on.
I know you're in the cities. What I don't know is like, how did you just kind of diving into this, but how did you actually find the need, kind of get into the mortgage industry? I know you're in probably other industries, but like, how did this whole thing happen?
Well, that's actually a pretty funny story. It was I've been in the mortgage industry 21 years now. When I say in it, I've been working with it, and supporting, consulting, doing things like this with you guys. 21 years, but when we had our consulting company, training company, we lost $1 million contract a week after 9/11. And I had to go back to a piece of advice that a mentor gave me where he said, because I said, hey, what's the one thing I need to do to be in your shoes when I get older? I was 18 years old. I just got cut from my basketball team. And he said, if you learn how to sell, you'll always be employed. And so here I was, we lost everything. And I called a buddy of mine and I said, I've got to rebuild my business, but then I got to go sell something, feed my family. And he was in the mortgage industry doing really well at the time. And I said, how does this mortgage thing work? And he said, come on in, I'll show you. And this is 2002, probably.
Okay.
And so I went in and I said, show me your sales order form. And he's like, sales orders? We don't do sales orders. I'm like, well, how do you sell? What are you closing on? He's like, well, he pulls out this document. I'm like, you have 1,003 pages you have to have people sign? He goes, no. It's a 1003. I'm like, 10, okay, well, whatever. I go, and I pulled out a highlighter. I said, highlight what you want filled out. He's like, why? I go, just highlight it. He highlights it, and I have these sheet protectors I brought with me, so I put them in the sheet protector, and I grabbed a pile of them. I said, you just need these highlighted places? He goes, yeah. I go, grabbed a pile of them, and I said, I'll see you tomorrow. And I just went back, came back the next day with 9 filled out. And he looks at me, he's like, what'd you do? I said, just ask people to fill it out. He goes, that's it? I go, yeah. He goes, what was your script? I said, if I can save you money on your mortgage, you want to? It's like, wasn't that hard? And they're like, well, yeah. I go, I don't know what I'm doing, but if you fill out these highlighted areas, this team will tell you if you can or you can't. It's pretty simple. And so he goes, okay, well, let's price your loan. I'm like, what do you mean price my loan? He goes, yeah, let's choose the interest rate. I'm like, you could choose the interest rate? I'm like, I thought bankrate.com set that. He starts laughing. He goes, no. He walks me over to a fax machine, and he shows me the big fax, all of the numbers on it, and I hate numbers. And I'm looking at like, at the time we were paying commissions, so I was at an 80% commission because I was a friend of his. And he shows me, he goes, well, we price on the back. I'm like, the back of what? He's like, the back, meaning yield spread premium. I'm like, front, back. I didn't understand any of this stuff, right? By the way, this goes to show this industry, what it was like back then. It was the wild, wild west.
Oh yeah.
And he goes, he goes, a $978,000 loan. We'll price it 2.75 on the back, 1 on the front, so 3.75. I'm like, 3.75%? You promised me 80%. He's like, Rene, stop. And I was just pissed. He goes, $978,000 multiplied by 3.75%. I'm like, yeah. He goes, 80% of that number. He's like, you're going to pay me $37,000 to fill out that piece of paper? He said, hey, welcome to the mortgage industry. So that's how I got in.
I know you've been, you've been everywhere. You're coaching, you're putting on a ton of events. What are you seeing as some of the biggest problems that LOs really need to maybe either be honest with themselves about or be able to fix to make 24 a different year for them? Where do you see the biggest problems today?
But it's funny. This is my 4th call today on this, and it's funny that I thought I'd have a different answer, but I don't. But I want to take a different approach to it. I think we need to take responsibility for our success, and anything. I want to keep things really, really simple for people. If anything is out of your control, it should really occupy no mental real estate. So interest rates should occupy 0 mental real estate. This lawsuit in the real estate industry should occupy 0 mental real estate. The inflation should occupy 0 mental real estate. Anything you cannot control should really not be in your conversation. And the crazy part is we're in a world where social media and the media itself and everyone else loves to put in our face every single day that which we cannot control and that causes us stress. And so if you don't have the mental fortitude and the discipline to remove and to sift through all of those things, you will find yourself in a world of hurt. And you'll find yourself saying things like, this is a tough year. You'll find yourself saying things like, oh my God, I don't know. We're just trying to keep our heads above water. Where anybody else who's doing well, and Chris, you've always been a survivor, no matter where you're at. I could not even imagine those words coming out of your mouth. I mean, I can't even imagine it. You're always opportunity. What's next? What are we going to do? What are we executing on? What shifts do we need to make? Everything that comes out of your mouth, that's the moment I mentioned, has been what you can control. And I think we have to go back to that simple piece of advice of saying, how many phone calls am I making? How many relationships am I building? How many meetings am I having? How many leads am I generating? How many times am I dialing the phone? Am I keeping up on what's going on? Am I keeping up with my relationships? All the things that I can control have to be the only focus.
Right. Yeah, such a good point. I mean, I hope everybody caught that, because Renee's basically saying, let's pay attention to the activity, not just the result. And I mean, I have fears set in every once in a while. The trick is getting me back to center, but it happens. And then I got to work my way back into that. And I try to do it in a very quickly manner, but it does happen to me. But I feel like I was thinking the other day, I was talking to a bunch of loan officers in Florida, and it seems like, Renee, that when it comes to asking for business, there seems to be a huge fear that comes into play where I can start this relationship, I can tell them about what I do, and then all of a sudden when I have to ask for it, it paralyzes many LOs. And I know that you're terrific at getting past that spot, but like, what is that message to help get loan officers past this fear?
I mean, it's sales 101. And I mean, if you're not asking for the business, you're not even in the business. And so what happened is this business has tricked so many people to think that they're in sales by being at the right place at the right time. You could have just been in the mortgage industry in the last couple of years. You would have made money accidentally and not even having to ask, just being an order taker. And now we've got a sense of reality, like every other industry right now. Like I've had to do for 30 years, ask for business. I've had to ask for what I want. And this is now that time. Now, can we make it easier to ask for business? Yes, if you do that in the face of delivering value. It's pretty simple. Like if I were to tell you, Chris, I said, hey, you got $1? And you say, yeah. I said, here, I'll trade you my $20 for your one. Would you make that shit? Would you make that trade?
Sure.
You're like, yeah. How often would you make that trade with me?
Every day.
As often until I stopped, probably, right?
Right.
And even if you had a meeting, you'd cancel meetings to continue making that trade. I'm asking for something. I'm asking for your $1, but I'm giving you 20 in return. That should be what it feels like to do business with people. That you have offered so much value. Your proposition, you're proposing this value. Your value proposition is so well articulated that it far exceeds the perceived value of the dollar or the time or the risk that you're asking the customer, the end user, or the real estate agent, or whoever it is that you're asking to do something. That it should be like trading 20s for ones. And if you don't, that means your presentation isn't up to par. So there's ways to make it easier, but what happens is remove presentation, and you're just asking for money and time and risk. You got to have good presentation.
That kind of leads into the point of presentation, and I think that that's the art. I think you would agree that many loan officers don't practice it, perfect it, think about it, and then they get to that spot, they fumble. I love role playing. It's my favorite thing to do. But it's because I like that practice. But like, if you're going to teach us something today about presentation, what would be the three main pieces, that ingredients in a sense, into that presentation that I need to work on?
Well, I'll give you five. And,
okay.
And because there's 5 things that have to be communicated when you're doing a presentation, and there are in this order, and you got to understand all of them. So I want you to write down the last name, McSit, like MCSIT, McSit. And that's the acronym for the 5 things. First one is me. I got to sell myself. You got to like me. You got to trust me. How I show up, how I dress. Did I show up on time? Do I have a smile on my face? My personal hygiene in order? Do I have a personal brand? Was I referred? All of those things sell me. If you don't like or trust me, it doesn't matter how good of a deal I'm offering you or what it is I'm offering you. It's just not happening. So that's the price of entry. You got to learn how to sell yourself. And you can Google it, chat GPT it, whatever you want. But learning how to sell yourself, telling your own story, where you come from, showing up and giving a firm, good handshake. These are basic fundamental things that our parents taught us. And being respectful, listening is a great way to get someone to like you. Just listen. Listen to what's there. So you got to sell yourself. The second thing, and this is what people skip, you got to sell your company, the company story. And the reason why is because if I like you, that means you're going to make a promise to me. But who's keeping that promise? It's the company. And the company has to be solvent. The company has to be strong. And the company can offer a bigger picture and a bigger reason that far exceeds the features and benefits of what people are buying. It can exceed a mission and a purpose. It can communicate a why, a deeper connection to something bigger. And so you have to understand how to sell yourself, but also why you work for the company you work for. And because I need to know that you are the trusted person out there saying, I went through all these other companies to find this one, and here's why. And if I know that you're doing that work for me, I don't then have to do that research because I like you and I trust you and you found the right place for me to do business with. So you are that assistant buyer in that moment. You're on my side of the table. You are that person that's helping me shop. You've got a vested interest in the success of this, and it's good. So I like you and I like the company. Next thing, do I buy off on the solution? That's the S. Like, does the solution solve my problem? And for me to understand that, I got to make sure that I understand the client's problem and their needs. I've got to understand what I'm actually solving for. There's got to be a solution in place. And where most people get this wrong is they solve what we call external problems. They need to solve internal problems. And so if I'm selling you a lawnmower, people say, well, what's the problem you're solving? Well, long grass. Well, that's the external problem. That's not why I buy. What am I really buying if I'm buying a lawnmower? Well, I'm buying the fact that my neighbors won't say, what the hell's wrong with your yard? That's the internal problem I'm solving. I'm keeping up with the effects. And so if I'm really branding around that, then I would my brand wouldn't be about, look at how our blades cut the grass. It would be looking at the pride of looking at your lawn. And you just look at this beautiful lawn that was done and people admiring that. And that's solving the internal emotional problem. And so why are people really buying a home? Why are they really refinancing? Why are they investing in a property? What's the internal story that they need to tell? Is it something that the internal thing is that now they feel like they're an adult? Maybe it's a first-time home buyer. This is a rite of passage. Well, if you tapped into that and you really held on to that and that was your conversational focus, you'd be more likely to get the deal than somebody talking about interest rates. If you're helping somebody get into their first investment property, well, now they're following the footprints of their father or their parent or their mother. Whatever that internal reasoning is, you got to be able to really get at that. And to know the solution, you have to understand the problem. I always tell people, say, for example, Chris, if I were to say, hey, I got a Band-Aid. Do you want a Band-Aid? Like right now, if I were to offer you a Band-Aid, would you want it?
No.
It'd be weird, right? It'd be like, dude,
right.
Why are you a Band-Aid? What if I were to say, Chris, you're bleeding right here. You want a Band-Aid? Yeah.
Perfect.
So I present the solution in the context of a problem identified. And so we have to identify the problem for the solution to make sense. And so if I like you, it's me, like the company, and the solution solves my problem. But it's the I. Is it worth the investment you're asking me to make? And now in mortgage and real estate, very rarely are we asking for money. So it's really mortgage, you're not asking for money. If you're talking to a real estate agent, you're not asking them for money. You're asking them for risk and time. And that can be more expensive than money. And that could be reputational risk, branding risk. It could be the fact that I don't trust the mortgage industry and you guys are always make mistakes and make me look bad. I spent 30 years building my brand. Why would I put my trust in you? These are big things that we're asking. We have to really clear on the investment that we're asking people to make in us. And so we have to be able to address that and why it's safe. This is where we talk about process and where we talk about our communication, where we talk about internal operations, efficiencies and technology, where we talk about our commitment to excellence and our culture and leadership. And so these are the things that create a sense of safety around the investment and risk time that we're asking people to make. And the last one is where most sales are lost. This is where people don't realize it, but it's the T, which is timing. I like you. I like the company. The product solves my problem, and it's worth the investment you asked me to make, but is now the time to buy. And I would venture to say that 90-some% of the sales that are lost because people don't feel a sense of urgency to buy now. They don't feel the sense of, it will cost me money to wait. If I feel like it will cost me money to wait, and I like you, I like the company, and it solves my problem, it's worth the money, but it will cost me money, I will decide now. Everyone listening to this should be an expert on answering the question, why now is the time to buy? That is probably the best skill they can have.
Amazing and so simple. It just makes me think about a couple examples, if you could give us, flipping this over to building a realtor relationship. I feel like is almost the same, although the internal problems are probably different. Give us a couple scripts, in a sense, in your words, of finding the internal problem for the realtor.
Yeah,
or is it different?
Yeah, well, I think you're dead on. Yeah, it's going to be different case to case. I would ask if I do get a chance to get with a real estate agent. One, I like the context. I don't like to just work with any real estate agent, and I tell it, don't just try to work with everyone. Work with ones that have alignment with you. Be on the search for people that you like. Do you like them? And can you try to find a reason to like them? And if my sales call, Chris, had nothing to do with trying to get you to like me, but my sales call was me trying to find every single reason why I can like you and what you do, that's a totally different experience. And one that puts no pressure, because I'm not asking for anything. I just did a free webinar for Hal Elrod, who wrote the book The Miracle Morning. He's releasing today is the book that they're re-releasing this new revised edition. And we had just met,
Miracle Morning, right?
Yeah, Miracle Morning. We met last week, and I'm like, I've always admired him. I'm like, you want me to help you launch a book? And he's like, what do you mean? I go, why don't I just go to my database and I'll put a webinar on for you? I said, well, we get 1,800 people in a week. I'll probably get 400 or 500 people. He's like, you do that? I'm like, yeah. What do you want? I'm like, nothing. And we did this. We had 478 people sign up and a couple hundred people on the call. And afterwards, he's like, holy wow. And people are like, you pitch? I'm like, I'm not pitching anything. I'm like, I'm just helping something I believe in.
Yeah.
And do you think it'll be pretty easy to ask him for something if I needed something later? Pretty simple. But I have nothing to ask him right now. I just really like him.
First.
Yeah, I just like him. And it took time, energy, resources away from what I was doing. So there was an investment on my part. But I really believed in what it was. It grew my network, and it fed somebody that I think is a good person to have in my network. And even if I asked nothing, I enjoyed it. And I built a relationship without asking for a darn thing. Why can't we do that for our agents and add value, ton of value? Why? What was important to him? His book launch was everything. So to me, you listen to what people value, and you serve that need. And if you serve that need well, everything else becomes easy. Even if I wanted to just be like, hey, can you give me an endorsement on this? I'd probably get it. And, based on something that I've actually helped him with or not.
Yeah.
I know he wouldn't do something that wasn't of integrity, but I think that's an example of how we approach these things. If we can go and say, who do I like to do business with? And so the questions I would be asking would be, one, take a deep interest. And you remember from Amplify, we'd look at listen, observe, validate, expand, the love method, where you listen to what's going on, you observe body language for any points of passion or points of dispassion, or if that's even a word. And then you validate it by acknowledging what you see, and then you ask an expanding question. But I would be asking questions like, tell me about, if things were to work out perfectly, what's your favorite thing about what's your best relationship? What do they look like in the mortgage industry? What do the nightmares look like to you? And I would want to know both of those sides of the stories. And then at the end, if I really felt it, I'd ask questions like, well, what do you need to see from me to have me be on your team, to be somebody that you consider a referral source or somebody you would refer your business to? And that takes all the onus onto me instead of asking them to do anything. What do I need to do to earn that business? And then that to me is one of my favorite questions to ask.
I love that. Working on, my buddy came out with a little statement today that says, talking about trying or training, and trying meaning, it's such an uncommitted type word, and training and being able to invest in ourselves, whether it's the books, it's the events, it's coaching, it's mentoring, and which kind of really made me think about, because I know I had this call with you today, which was a lot of your events. And to those listening today, like, walk them through and, amplify. To me, I had no idea what I was walking into. In fact, I was the one at the dinner that probably was the first one that got picked on, and maybe that's a secret, and you figure out what that is when you get to his event. But I still today remember that event, and so I still remember some of the exercises. I still use them. And tell me, like, what am I going to learn in Amplify? I can tell you it's a huge value, and still to this day, I don't know what it's been, 2-3 years since I was there. I should go again. I need to go again. But tell me about.
Very different now. It's very different in a much more. We've gotten much more honed in on the process and what we're trying to achieve, and we go further, which is really, really fun. But you'd said try versus train, which I thought was really cool. And I'm getting the research on this delivered to me this week. But there's some research on the word try and what happens, what part of the brain it activates. And there's two parts of our brain that are located right up here and right up here. And I'm not quoting the research, the names just yet, because I want to make sure I do it accurately. But when you use the word try, it activates part of the brain that's negotiable. I'm going to try to do this. And it's a part of the brain that can go either way, right? It's negotiable. But when I will do something, there's a decision, activates the opposite part, medial. It's something medial cortex that is non-negotiable. And there's a sense of decision. And trying is never a decision. But there's something really beautiful there in terms of, and it's so funny. One common thing I see around successful people is they hate the word try. And they may not even know why, but they just know anecdotally that word is the kiss of death. And it's even Yoda said, try not to either do or do not. And there is no try, right? But Amplify is a 2.5-day curated experience. It begins with a dinner that creates a metaphor for what the 2 days are like. And we believe that a piece of chicken with no story ends up on a $1 menu at KFC. But a piece of chicken with a story will pay $150 to eat it off the tasting menu. So what's the difference there? It's just chicken. If you add a story, all of a sudden the value goes up. It's no different than the value propositions that many of you listening to right now. There really are very few patent monopolies out there. Technology can be replicated. Very few things out there that truly make you stand out. And so you're basically just a piece of chicken in the marketplace. And when that happens, then you're going to go, okay, well, what's the cheapest chicken I can get for my money? It's the biggest bang for my buck. I don't like being in that position. And so, the differentiator is your story. And your story is so much more than the words that we choose, but it's your brand, it's your company, it's your logo, it's the way you present yourself, it's the way you carry yourself, it's your tone of voice. It's the sequence in which you speak. There's so many things that are involved in that quote-unquote story, the narrative, that raise your value to the point where people feel like you are inexchangeable, which is a true definition of differentiation, where I don't have to lower my price and I can still sell my product because it's so different that there is no other choice. I am the choice based on what I've presented. And so when we're looking at Amplify, the night begins with a 7 to 10 course tasting menu where each course is created by a chef, and the chef comes out and explains each dish in the same way that we would put a story around a piece of chicken or the dish. He's modeling the presentation we put around our value propositions or our feature and a benefit. And they don't realize that that's what's happening, but they're learning that the first night. We're learning, how to toast, using a toast as an opportunity to speak in public, and learning a very simple methodology to reduce our stress and to be able to speak from the heart, even as something simple as a toast. And so the first night gets people to communicate, break bread, and bond, and also learn a ton of stuff so that by the beginning of the following day, we're running full speed from 8 o'clock in the morning. And from that moment on, I put people in front of the room to learn under the circumstances that they would actually have to deliver. If I was getting you ready for war, I couldn't have you read a brochure on how to prepare for war. I couldn't get you to prepare for a fight by having you, read a step-by-step manual. You'd have to get in the ring, because unless you've seen a punch come your way or a jab come your way, And unless you've learned how to shoot a gun under highly stressful situations, the moment you go to war, any training you did in a non-realistic scenario was worthless because you weren't there. Speaking is the same way. You have to learn speaking under certain levels of stress. And so, when you say picking, I was picking on you. It's more like I was just trying to manufacture some moments of stress so that it creates the right optimal learning environment for learning a skill like that. And so it's very intense. People will go through and we visit their origin story, and we realize that their origin story is really the beginning of their purpose as to why they do what they do. And then we take that story, we practice and deliver it, and we put that into what we call the Amplify formula, which then leads to the final day where we take their story and merge it with their value proposition to create a full message.
Now, I've watched two good customers and friends just go through the event. Jason Purcell, which I think's went a couple of times, Brian Shields, and I feel like you've changed their life. I just watched Jason present to a big group the other day in Florida and did a phenomenal job. And
Oh, cool.
Brian just continues to grow his brand there in Arizona, and that's just two examples of only two. I could Michelle Castle or Robin Lavasser. I could name names after names after names of where you've impacted so many people through Amplify. What's next for you? So you got a bunch of Amplify events. What events are coming up that have spots or have openings? If they wanted to get interest into the event, where do I go for one? And what events or cities are open?
Well, we got coming up January 11th, we've got Scottsdale, which is always one of our favorite cities. And then in February 8th, it's actually at my house in Minnesota. So we're seeing if we can get people to come to Minnesota and entice them and being at my home. It's going to be intimate, fun, but really intense, fun time together. So
when is the one in Minnesota?
February 8th.
February 8th.
Yeah. And what's really fun too is that, we've got at each of those, you're going to have LaShawn Merritt, who's a 3-time gold medalist in the 400-meter dash. He's coming and attending for his second time. Flex Lewis, who's an 7 consecutive Mr. Olympia winner. And so remember Arnold Schwarzenegger, he won it 6 times. But Flex Lewis, one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, he's devoting the rest of his new chapter after he retired to becoming a speaker. And so he's coming to as many Amplifies in a row as possible.
Wow.
So we've got a whole year plan created for him and who he is. The same with LaShawn. I mean, I've been working with a lot of influencers, like, even Chris Crone, Keaton the Muscle, to, helping Brad Lee with his message, and a lot of really, really cool influencers and celebrities and sports athletes that we're helping really hone in on their message. People that have been successful in one area and now trying to, how do I repurpose my story and my skill set to being on stage?
I don't know how you could go through 15 minutes without giggling your butt off with Brad Lee. He's probably the funniest guy I've ever talked to.
Yeah, he's something else.
Any other events that you have planned for 2024?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have our AmpCon event probably somewhere in September this year. October has already been booked. Yeah, that's our annual event where we get 700-800 people together.
Wow.
And every month we're going to have things. We've got a group coaching program, which is actually one of my most exciting pieces. We get together with, because think about like what we went through, and I had you for 2 days, 2.5 days. That's it, and we haven't been able to really connect. If I would have been able to stay with you monthly through that, even just a very inexpensive process, just to keep that front of mind, how much deeper the lessons. That was our biggest feedback, was we didn't provide anything. And so writing the book helped kind of get that people to have a way to really dive deeper into that. But then also our monthly group coaching, where I do 1 week and then I bring a guest coach like a Brad Lee or a Jen Gottlieb or even if you name it, some really, really, really cool people in my network that will provide the second one. And so I'm trying to mix things up and give people access to some really cool things. And in fact, anybody listening to this, just send us a message. We get you a free month to join.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Tell us about the book.
The book was a fun exercise. I mean, the book came after the workshop, which a lot of times people will write a book and then try to create a workshop. We had a functional workshop for 15 years that then the book was written about. And the book took me 10 months to write it. And it was, we looked at I wanted this to be something that wasn't just, get it done. We wrote with the number one publisher in the world, business book publisher in the world, and the what do they call it? The rigor they put me through to ensure everything was accurate, the research was up to date and up to speed. And, even something as crazy simple, but not simple as like our index. Like our index is a reverse Google. If you want to learn about psychological safety, you want to learn about tie downs, you want to learn about, how to open a conversation, you just go there and you search it in the index and it'll tell you everywhere in the book that we talk about it. So it's very, very well thought out. We did great. Number 2 Wall Street Journal bestseller. At one point, we were number 198 in the world for all books.
Wow.
In our, at least the Audible version was, our hardcover was like within the top 2,000 books in the world. And a bunch of number 1 piece. We were ranked one of 2022's or 2022's best business books by booksummers.com.
So if I want to get a book, I want to get in the coaching program, I want to maybe go to Amplify. I just go to, what's your website? Rene Rodriguez?
Yeah, meet Rene, MEET, Rene, RENE.com. And everything's there. The book's on there. Coaching, click on that. It's there. I believe if you do the code free coaching, that should work. If not, send me a message. I'll make sure we get it to you.
Cool.
And then under Amplify, you just click on select dates. A bunch of cool videos there that you'll be able to see. And you'll see what cities we're in. But otherwise, just reach out to me directly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Rene has done an amazing job for industry. He has changed a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine. He helped me for sure. And I'm stubborn. I went in there with the wrong mindset, and he still changed me.
Still the best
I
dressed,
can't wait to go back.
He's the best dressed.
Best dressed. So, that's just because I was overcoming my weight issue. Now I'm trying to lose weight, so I don't care as much. But that's my internal problems. I'm all messed up. But listen, Rene, thank you so much for coming on. It was an honor that you agreed to say yes to come on Coaching with Chris. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I appreciate everything you've done for my friends, for this industry. You truly are making a big impact. So thank you.
It was an honor. I see the waves that you're making and the big impact as well, man. So the answer was simple, and I hope to see you back. In fact, I'll give you a message. We'll talk about Mastermind. We got a cool Mastermind that you'd be fun to be part of.
Love to be part of it. Thank you, Rene.
Take care.